Yeah, hey Andrew, how you doing?
Right on. Well, okay. I think they gave us a tight schedule, so let's get jamming on this. Hey, everybody, welcome to our session. My name is Andrew Lau, CEO and co-founder of Jellyfish, an engineering management platform that provides visibility into what every engineering team needs around understanding what they're working on and how they're spending their time. Right. I have the pleasure today of actually sitting here and talking with Zak Islam here from Atlassian. So, Zak, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me. So I'm actually dialing in from Sydney, so it's about 5:15 in the morning. But I've got all the energy. I think I should be ready to go. I've got my coffee here. I've been in Sydney for about 3 years now. Moved here in 2018 to work with Atlassian. Home prior to Sydney was actually Canada, where I was working with AWS running services like SQS, SNS, Amazon MQ for about 6 years or so. What gets me out of bed is distributed systems, performance, scale, all the kind of geeky stuff we're gonna get to talk about later today.
Oh, wow. Well, Zak, thank you for getting up early. I hope you have gallons of coffee here. Everyone here watching is excited to hear what you have to say. So before we kind of jump into it, I want to learn more at Atlassian. I think we all use Jira, love Jira, understand what's going on there, but I don't think all of us actually know much about Atlassian as a company. Like we just are used to the actual columns and Kanban boards, but we don't know much actually what happens if you peel away those layers and what's actually going on there. So do you mind talking a little bit about Atlassian so we can all understand how this all fits together?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. Atlassian started back in 2002. The legend has it that Mike Cannon-Brookes and Scott Farquhar wrote the original versions of Jira in their dorm room. I'm certain the story is not as beautiful and legendary as that, but my version sounds a lot more press friendly. What Atlassian wants to do is build collaboration tools. We want to help. Our mission is to unleash the power potential of every team. We started as a company of two people. Over the last 18, 20 years, we've grown to about 7,000 people across the globe. We've got teams in the US, Australia, India, Turkey, Poland, just everywhere. And just within engineering alone, when I joined about 3 years ago, we were about 1,000 people. Now we're at about 3,000 engineers. So, what's exciting is when we get to see the Mars rover land, when we get to see the Tesla cars rolling off the production line, we know that Jira powers that. That's our contribution to the world, and it's how we get teams to work better.
That's awesome. Well, it's great that I got a chance to learn a little bit more. And so now that I have that context, tell me where Zak actually fits into this organization that I think all of us have the ambition to become.
Yeah, it's humbling. So my role at Atlassian is to run an organization called Tech Teams, and really it's to empower technical users. My portfolio includes three strategies: Agile, DevOps, and ITSM. So things like Jira Software, Jira Align, Bitbucket, Status Page, Ops Genie. I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple of things that I'll get yelled at for later, but those are some of the products that fit into my portfolio.
That's awesome. And just because not everybody on the call may be familiar with the acronyms, ITSM?
IT Service Management.
Thank you. Right. And by the way, you said Ops Genie. If you ever make it up here to Boston from Australia, please come over. Oysters and beers on me, okay?
Look forward to it.
Awesome. Okay. Our topic today is what is the key to scaling effectively? So let's kind of frame that. Let's talk about that before we talk about like how and why, but like let's define that topic and what is that, when you said I want to talk about scaling this effectively, like what does this actually mean for you?
Yeah, lately I've been obsessing over root cause analysis a lot, to be honest. And it's kind of imagine five whys on steroids. So, as leaders, we get to where we are because we're experts. Andrew, we know how to solve problems. If we rewind back to where, we were a couple of years ago, 5, 10 years ago, we were in the details. We had a lot of context. But now as senior leaders, we don't have a lot of the context, if any at all, sometimes when we're, working with our teams. And, we get to see really the tip of the iceberg in both good and bad scenarios. Sometimes we see big spikes in user acquisition. We're high-fiving each other. We're saying, yeah, hey, great job. The inverse of that is sometimes we see big spikes in churn, and then we have to dive in. So the problems we face are really, really complex. A turn of phrase that we used to use in AWS was there's no compression algorithm for experience. So what this means as leaders is we have to bring the gift of experience to the table when we're diagnosing problems. So Andrew, I've got a question for you. Have you ever had back problems?
Oh, like you don't know. I am 40, let's say 43 right now. And I learned that there's a rule, which is the day you turn 40, all things start falling apart. So I've had 3 years of this tracking now. So yes.
Oh, that's perfect. I think that's the universal rule. So, and how often when you have back problems do you say, "Oh, I just need a back massage. That's it." Right? It's gonna be good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've got a coworker who has been the number one COVID thing is like, got to get that massage because back problems are number one. But yes, we're right there with you.
Yeah, I'm probably one of those coworkers as well. Here's the thing about back pain. Our bodies are really complex, just like some of the problems we have to deal with. Recently, I went to a chiropractor with back problems, and it was just killing me, Andrew. Honestly, it was killing me. I was having a tough time sitting at my desk, and what he told me was, yeah, just go stretch your glutes. You don't need a back massage or anything. Just yeah, that will help, but go stretch your glutes because it had to do with something about the way that I was sitting. So the back pain that I thought was was the main problem was actually a symptom of something totally different. As he started to ask me, hey, tell me what you do, how are you sitting, and so on, we got from, hey, I have back problems to the height on my adjustable desk was wrong. And I wouldn't have put those two and two together, right? And what it came down to was I was chasing the symptoms, and I could totally go get back massages. I can do a lot of stretches to make my back feel better, but until I fixed the root cause, which was the height on my desk, that back problem wouldn't have gone away. That's crazy, right?
I
Somehow, yeah.
I'm starting to get it, and I think you're teaching me here. So okay, I get this. So like connect this back to me. Like what's been the top of mind for you, like as you kind of think this way at Atlassian?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. Tying it back from my back problems to probably something relatable to everybody else on the call here. I've been dealing with, like I'm sure many of us do, and I hope you're chuckling if you're on the line here. I've been dealing with working with one of my engineering leaders, Jane. Okay, Andrew, I don't have a Jane on the team, so I'm going to anonymize the name just so
I
the
love
person
James.
doesn't feel bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to say Jane's awesome. I've been working with Jane because she's on the front line. She is responsible for shipping one of our newest products. And my ask to her has been, Jane, I need you to ship it faster, right? I know you can relate.
Yeah.
I just need you to increase the velocity. And like everybody else, time to market is key. Here's the reality. Her team is working as hard as possible. They're trying to ship the things that we are asking them to do. They are making lots of assumptions about what's expected and doing their best. From my vantage point, they're doing really well, but something isn't connecting, and I'm not seeing the solution come together. This is really frustrating for me because the end result to me is so obvious. It's totally clear in my head, but somehow the team is just not shipping, right?
Okay. Like I'm going to pretend I've never said to say someone to ship that faster, but I'm actually right there with you. And I'll say, I promise I didn't say it today. But I think, well, help me understand, like, why is this happening? How do you know, like, what's actually happening? Like, unpack this all for me.
Yeah. Over the last few weeks, I've been spending a lot more time with Jane. And something that became super clear from my conversations with her is there is a really big gap between what's in my head, and what's in my head is the vision, is the what we need to ultimately do. And and there's a really big gap between that and what Jane is hearing. This was, what I realized was I was communicating the vision, and Jane was actually hearing the vision as a plan.
Okay.
And that was scary because I wasn't communicating a plan. I was communicating a broad, high level idea around how I imagined a solution coming together. And this was eye opening for me. And it made me pause and reflect. And how often are senior leaders like us on the screen and those listening in, are we communicating a vision, which is then interpreted as a plan? When this happens, I noticed this through, this and other examples that I had a chance to reflect on. You get to see a lot of these symptoms when your teams are not clear about the why. Why are we doing something? If we are talking about the what, hey, I need you to ship this feature. I need you to ship that feature. I need you to ship feature this. But if your teams are not clear about the why, they're not going to be able to unlock their creativity. And it's scary because with, kind of like that back example, you end up seeing a lot of different symptoms. It could be perceived as lack of velocity. It could also be perceived as your teams are not aligned. And that's what I was seeing, right? And you know what it was I wasn't communicating the right things. I was telling the teams, go. The teams had no idea why they were going.
Yeah. So I'm hearing this confusion with the whys and the whats, and like you actually need both, right? And I think some of this is actually that even worse, your whys and whats were even being confused by people hearing you. And so like that context of actually how it fits into the bigger business picture sounds like it's critically important, right? To make sure people know what to do and why they're doing it. And I'll just riff with you, like it helps with their ability to adapt and change and move with actually what's happening, because we probably all don't know beforehand what's actually going to happen. And so that like helps to provide the context where they can execute to what you thought and what the company thinks are the goals that need to get done.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Well, that actually helps me kind of like understand and think back to the cases where I may have failed this. I hope it helped other people here. But okay, now that we can diagnose that, like that's a start maybe. Okay, so thank you, chiropractor, for telling me these things, that my desk needs to go up or down a little bit, or I should go to a standing desk maybe, stretch my glutes a little bit. But okay, but what do we do about it, right? Like, because this isn't, like back to this, like I can't move my desk up or down clearly. I don't know if I should be stretching. So like, what do we do about it? Like make it practical? Like, how do we think about this? Like, how should everyone on this horn go like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but like, and I've been in that situation before, but like, what are things I should do?
Yeah. I've got 3 practical things that I thought I could share. Something that I hope we can walk away. The first one is role model curiosity, Andrew. And, most importantly, reward this behavior in the organization. So when somebody is scratching their head and saying, Zach, can you tell me why we're doing this? Reward that behavior. Andrew, I don't fully understand that. Can you tell me a little bit more? Instead of getting frustrated as leaders, it's like, oh my God, why isn't my team getting this? Imagine we shifted our mindset to, hey, thank you for asking. So glad we can, figure this out before we start writing the code. And reward that behavior, amplify that curiosity, right? When leaders reward that behavior, that becomes contagious in the organization. The second one I wanted to share was trust and verify. At Amazon, at Atlassian, we have something we call a phase in our project cycles that we call inspect, right? And it's we check in. We as leaders, we are expected to check in all the time. And if it's done incorrectly, it can really seem like we're micromanaging our teams. But that's not the intention at all. Imagine you're checking in with the teams to help them look around corners. It's like, hey, have you thought about that? What happens when, this system is unable to talk to this system? Are you going to have a cascading failure of some sort? How are you handling that? That's again, we're all bringing curiosity to the table. And when you are checking in and helping teams up level their thinking, you get to test, hey, is the team working toward, is there an impedance mismatch between why you're asking the team to do something versus what's actually being shipped, which could be something totally different and not meeting the original intention. So, I think that verify, then inspect phase is really, really important. And the last one I wanted to share was writing. Writing really helps unpack. And, Amazon is known for its 6-pagers, 3-pagers, 1-pagers. At Atlassian, we just adopted that, right? And it's an amazing tool. How often, Andrew, are you sitting in a meeting where you're getting presented really amazing and well thought out slides, but at the
I'm
same time, right?
reality. Yeah, reality. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. What is a good slide? I'm yet to see it. So
right. And how often are you scratching your head going, okay, I get the high level picture, but tell me more. Tell me a little bit more about how the picture comes together. You know, when you're using slides, it's really easy to gloss over the details.
yeah,
But when you are expected to write that down, it's incredibly hard to avoid the details, right? And it's almost a tool to help your teams get their thoughts even more clear, right? So, when you are, instead of talking bullet points, imagine you have to write a narrative. That's hard. So those are my 3 practical things that, I think we can do as leaders, to really tease out that, hey, do our teams understand the real reason behind what we're doing?
yeah. I love it, and this is a good reminder that I should have done a better job writing in college. It is 100% important today, and who would have thought a software career would say like emphasize writing these days? But I hear this over and over from every company here. Hey, by the way, for the audience here, the Plato folks are reminding me to remind you that please feel free to actually drop a question in the Q&A. Rare is the chance that we actually get to talk to someone like Zak Islam here from Atlassian, dialing in at, oh geez, I don't even want to pretend how early it is in the morning that I would not be up for from Australia. This is a scarce chance. Okay, well, here's, at least actually dropped a question in here. So Zak, at least asking, how does the current pandemic experience provide learnings on scaling?
We've been talking about this topic a lot, Andrew, and I'd love to actually hear from you a little bit as well. It's, as we left the office, the learning by osmosis, I would walk by our teams, I would sit in our team squad areas and actually learn about what was happening across the organization. I'd be able to connect a lot of dots. And as we went remote overnight, I don't have access to that information anymore. And now I'm trying to figure out, holy smokes, how do I connect all these different dots? This team is working on something, and another team is working on something. Boy, do I have to go splunk deep into Confluence or other collaboration tools to go, okay, what's going on? So, I think communication is super key, is keeping over communicating.
Got it. Hey, Zak, thank you for that. Hey, Plato team, can you do me a favor and actually let's finish one question before we throw more out there from the platform here. So Zak, like, just help me a little bit on you talking about like understanding what's happening. Like, what are your tools? Like, I think you just peppered in like Confluence, but like, how do you in this pandemic situation, as Lise mentioned, kind of get a beat of what's happening, right? Because you talk about how the writing and the receiving is part of it, but like, what do you do proactively if people aren't able to do some of these things?
Yeah. Andrew, we always talk about people, process, technologies as a way to scale our organizations, or at least to think across those dimensions. Technology has played a huge role. So just something as simple as, the reality is not everybody consumes blogs. Not everybody is able to consume an asynchronous blog. Some people love this. Some people love watching videos. So, we have had to really, really shift away from using one method of communication to communicating with our teams through all different kinds of channels. The same message.
Mm.
I kid you not, I think I'm becoming a video editor nowadays. We will publish a blog that has a Loom video embedded in it, where we're actually talking to our team verbally. Sometimes we have to take that message, drop into all of our Slack channels. Sometimes we have to have town halls just to re-emphasize the same message, because we know that not everybody can absorb the same information through the same medium. So we've had to lean really heavily into over communicating and finding creative ways to share that same information.
Amazing. Hey, thank you for fleshing that out for us. So there's a bunch of questions, actually. I think everyone got excited about your topic of writing and how much I need to go work on my writing here. No, but the net outcome here is that I think that we got 4 or 5 questions here, but Toby actually is asking, how do you balance writing versus verbal communication? And he emphasized it in terms of a 15 to 20 person engineering org, but maybe you can talk about it in all the different stages. And how do you think about those things?
Yeah, Toby, that's a really, really great question. And as a joke, I saw a meme one day. It was, we can end every business conversation by saying it's a balance. It's just a balance, right? Well, I won't do that. I won't do the cop-out approach of just saying it's a balance. But maybe practically what I can say is verbal communication is incredibly important. That two-way dialogue is incredibly important. The way we balance verbal communication and written communication, at least in companies like the ones I've worked with, where I've seen this balance work really well, is that verbal communication happens on top of the written artifact.
Okay.
So somebody wants to discuss an idea. Hey, you know what? Why don't you get me a one pager? That is such a common thing for us to say. Why don't you write that down?
Yeah.
And let's then spar about what you've written down. That process of writing something down advances the conversation, builds that clarity. It actually helps the person asking for help, that wants to get some help, some time to actually put a wrapper around their idea. Then they can bring it to spar, right? So I would say that that's probably the best way I've seen organizations balance written and verbal communication.
That's awesome. And then while we're at it, just to build on this, do you have any tips or resources around how we train those and nurture those narrative skills? I think Ben actually said this, or Ben and Jared both asked this.
Yeah, it starts with the leaders in the room, right? Our teams, I strongly believe this, Andrew. Our teams are molded in our beliefs in so many ways. And if as leaders we care about the quality of what's being put in front of us, if we hold that high bar and say, hey, I really understand that. Let's get better at writing this, right? Again, it's that's what that's important. That role modeling from leadership. And the second one, I'll repeat something I said earlier. The turn of phrase was, there's no compression algorithm for experience.
Okay.
And it's the same process. It's that process of practicing. Just because you're not hitting the mark the first time doesn't mean you should stop doing it. That I can honestly tell you, I've become a much better writer because and now it's just a natural thing for me. It's like I need to ping Andrew, dude. Expect a nicely worded email before I get on a call with you to just spar on an idea. So I think we often underestimate the value of experience and practice, but I would say that's the secret here: is practice. But leaders really do have to hold that very high bar.
Well, Zach, maybe you can help me do it. We can write notes to each other on how to better webinars in this case.
Done.
Great. Okay. So Ashley's got a great question coming up, but I'm actually going to start with Brian first, because I think Ashley's will help us finish actually on the summary section in a second. So from Brian York, how do you grow leaders to effectively scale your vision of the future?
That's a really good question. I will, one of the things that I've learned to appreciate over time is to get rid of an echo chamber. in your team. And building a really, really diverse team, and I don't mean in just gender balance diverse team. What I mean is a team that is balanced in terms of skills, experience, background, context, industry. You know, Andrew, I was, growing up as an engineer, I thought, you know what? I just need to work with engineers to solve this problem. But when you bring in a designer, when you bring in a product manager, when you bring in somebody from a totally different field, you know, boy, can those ideas ever make you creative, right? And it's to appreciate that, keeping an eye out for an echo chamber, sorry, is probably one of the things that I would say is key, is super key to making sure you are scaling effectively. So, you're not using the same tools over and over and over again. You are constantly improving your tool, the tools in your tool belt. You're constantly bringing in new ideas. You're bringing in people that will challenge you. Those things work. Those things have worked for me.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you, Zach. And hopefully those same principles hold all through this 3,000 person organization that you're leading the way on. I think we're going to switch to probably our last question here from Ashley. How do you confirm everyone understands? And this is actually mapping back to your original, like, how do we scale effectively, right? And you talked around the whys as a big part of the knowledge here and the thing that makes it happen. Ashley asks, how do you confirm that everyone understands the whys and it's actually trickling down correctly as you intended? Because you just described in like our favorite manager, Jane, around how that didn't work. So how do you know that, how do you confirm along the way that it actually connects correctly?
Yeah, rituals are really important. Those trust and verify rituals are extremely important. Where you have, you can all walk away from a meeting, and Andrew, I'm sure you have heard the phrase at some point in your career, when you make assumptions, you make a ass out of both of us, right? And that's what gets me in trouble.
Never.
Yeah,
I would
exactly.
never say that. Yeah.
That's what gets me in trouble all the time. Even when I'm working with my managers, the senior leaders, the executives across the organization, it's the assumptions that get me into trouble. It's not my intentions. It's, oh, I think that person said that. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But Andrew, how often are we getting into trouble when we come back and the person's like, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant at all. Well, that happens. That's healthy. That's normal. In some cases, that can result in great outcomes. In other cases, that can result in really poor outcomes. So what I would say is systematically creating those check-in rituals where you actually have that sequence of, hey, we discussed that. Team, let's actually think about the next steps. Can we come back here with another one pager, not slides, on the key next steps, where we can actually all align on what those next steps are. So I would say that's one approach, is the rituals and using the tool of actually writing to clarify ideas. And actually, the other one I would say is, as leaders, we have to lead. What does that mean? Is, Andrew, if you're on my screen, I can say on screen these days because I think that's normal. Yeah. And I'm kind of seeing you doing one of these. It's okay for me to say, hey, Andrew, tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's the human part of being a leader, where we get to check in with our teams and go, hey, Andrew, I see you're still thinking through it. Can you tell me what's going on? That banter, super important.
It's such a good reminder that we're still humans. We still value these dialogues. They're really important. We probably know instinctively how to do them in person, but it's harder. And you said how to do it on the screen. Okay, so Zach, thanks for bringing that home for us. And so, just to kind of recap this, because I think sadly we're going to run out of time with me and you on this one and the rest of the folks here. But I mean, we should wrap it up. What are the things that we should think about, all of us, with a minute left? What's the punchline that we should all take away? What should we remember from what Zak from Atlassian told us to do?
Yeah, it's important for engineers to understand why they're doing something and what they're doing. Our words as leaders carry a lot of weight, Andrew. And it's important to remember that we validate that the vision is not confused as a plan when we are communicating. And as leaders, the simplest tools at our disposal is to demonstrate curiosity. Hey, did you get what I was talking about? Just something as simple as that. And reward that behavior. And it can be contagious when your team starts to ask why. And that's when creativity kicks in.
Hey, Zak, I want to thank you. So everyone here, this is Zak from Atlassian Drop in Knowledge, and this is Andrew from Jellyfish. Thanking everyone for joining us on this.